Hello Envoys, it's me, Kato, bringing you a guide to Avowed, this time covering the fourth of the totems you can collect, and that is the Totem of Galawain and the 6 fragments you can attach to it, found in Galawain's Tusks, the 4th zone of the game. These 6 fragments and totem base can be added to your camp and have up to a total of 6 permanent effects while the totem is active. Coming up with a Kato sweep for this one was a bit of a nightmare, so I hope you're ready for an epic quest. I'll tell you right now, the totem base is almost in the dead center of the map, while the fragments of the totem could not be further from each other. One of them requires a dispel from Yahtzee, and another is locked behind a crucial point in the main quest. So as long as you keep that in mind, I did my best. I'll be going over each of the totem piece effects once we find them, and just like the previous guide, this route will brush up against all of the 5 bounty targets in Galawain's Tusks as well, which will also be marked on the map and I will make mention of as we go. So let us begin that epic quest across the wasteland of Galawain's Tusks. What better place to start than the glorious Audra campsite marker right by the entrance to Galawain's Tusks. But instead of following the road straight to Solace, we are taking the scenic route and going west. And our first objective is in the Slumbering Fields. But to get there, we will be going through the Writhing Ruins, passing through this western gateway to get up to the perfectly usable walkway up here to use to leap to the western cliff. The brambles up here can then be burned away by the power of Kai or fire grenades or spells to open a short passage that leads into a clearly smelly boss arena, where you will encounter the first of our bounty targets, which you can fight or avoid, and continue west, jumping up the wood platforms and crawling through this small opening. Our next landmark should be a broken aqueduct, the one that seems to be slowly sinking into the lava. Just like water, frost, magic, and grenades can make platforms, or if you're a fighter build, you can just charge across. Now, the following pathway, after you pass the strange dwarf with the dancing skeletons, will then finally end up in the Slumbering Fields. The totem fragment is nestled in this toppled tower that's up high. If you head directly north from the entrance of the Slumbering Fields, dealing with the sporelings as you see fit, you can then take each of these big step-shaped stones that cross over the top of the main pathway and take you closer to the tower itself. On the left side from here, there will be a platform here low enough to climb, turn north to parkour to the next, and then you'll be right where you need to be to enter this ruined tower and find the Hunter's Arrows of Slaying. And these, when on an active totem, will grant you 2 might and 2 constitution. And if you're after bounty targets, there should be one a little ways to your south, unless you already fought it on your way up here. After you're finished up in these Slumbering Fields, the next part we're going for is actually the base of the Totem of Galawain, at the Shrine of Galawain. So if you cross back over that river of lava and then head northeast, you will eventually discover some more godless ruins, which are what we're looking for. You'll know you're in the right place if you haven't been here before and you see 2 ogres guarding the ruins. I would argue they are the most challenging of the bounty targets, but there's enough space here where you can actually just sneak up the stairs and grab the totem base while they're not paying attention. And if this ogre package deal wasn't enough, there's another bounty target just on the other side to the northwest inside a cave. So have fun. After fighting or fleeing for your life, the next fragment is at the bridge to the garden. However, to save us a little bit of time, I'll first suggest getting the Solace campsite marker just to the northeast from the Shrine of Galawain. But after that, you really only need to follow the big glowing tree. And on your approach to the bridge to the garden, we can just continue to hug this left rocky wall and hop up once you reach the cliff's edge. Then if you look just under where the bridge starts, there'll be a spot you can hop down to somewhat safely, where you'll be able to locate the Antler of the Persevering Stag next to a Kith corpse. And the bonus that comes from the Antler of the Persevering Stag increases your damage against prone enemies by 75%. And if you're crushing objectives as you go, your first objective should be right on the bridge above you. And after that, to save some backtracking, we can fast travel to the Solace camp. Since we are starting at a campsite, I did have an ulterior motive here. Bringing Marius and Yahtzee will make the next leg of this much smoother, or efficient if you're going for efficiency, because our next objectives are on the northeastern corner of the map, a location that ties into Marius's backstory and has an obstacle that needs dispelled. But since we're passing Solace Keep, if the place wasn't its own billboard already, but just in case you haven't, at the very least, I recommend speaking to the council for the main quest, and you'll find out why later. So after all that prep, we're on the road that leads north from Solace Keep and passing through the primordial depths. Now once the road hits its end via a broken bridge, that's the time to merge a bit off to the right into the numerous Zarup camps here. After we've run into the primordial depths north beacon, we can then go through this opening in the fence and platform over the lava river into this spider cave, which will eventually take us up to where we need to go. In this spider cave, there are two possible obstacles to get through, one breakable wall and one burnable spider web. But on this path, we're going to take the burnable spiderweb route and end up in this magma chamber that has some burnable brambles up high, blocking our path up and out of this small cavern. Once that's out of the way though, you can continue on to this corridor that leads back up to the surface, where we emerge directly in front of a Pargroon cache. The totem fragment we're after though is actually off to our left, up these series of rocky steps and following the cliff wall along the left side, up to this godless tower that has a lot of wood barricades for some reason, maybe to keep the goodies inside a surprise? Because when we climb up and into the tower, we will find the Hunter's Arrows of Surviving, which have the effect of killing an enemy, giving you plus 20% move speed for 10 seconds. Our next fragment to collect is actually in the same area on the other side of the Pargroon cache, and if you haven't jumped in that cache already, we will be using it to get a little bit closer. So if we take these rocky steps back the way we came along this cliff face and hop up to the Pargroon cache, burn the brambles, and drop down, grabbing goodies as we go. Once unbarred, the door will of course open up, almost facing directly where we need to go, but the easier spot to leap to is a little to the right. What we need to get to is this illusory wall that is being guarded by Zarups and Scorchblights. Take care of them, and Yahtzee can use her special Dispel Illusion ability to get rid of this illusory wall. This will then open up into a small, dimly lit cave that is thankfully lit by torches, and comes to a T a short ways in. And off to the left, if you burn the brambles in your way, it'll open up the entrance to a small little godless hovel with the antler of the pursued stag sitting on a table inside. And the effect of this fragment is critical hits deal high bleed accumulation. And I'm sure you noticed that Marius's companion mission is also just down the cliff from your location, so it's a good time to hit that up if you've been meaning to do so. For the next non-quest locked fragment, we will need to go west across the northern primordial depths. So if you're starting at the Pargroon cache, you can jump down the cliffs near where the spider cave is, or just fast travel to the beacon we got on our way here. Then we'll backtrack a little bit along the lava lake side, back to the main road where the bridge is out. But along the western cliffs, there are a couple of breakable wood walls that can serve as a bypass to get to the western end of the map. And just ahead, you'll be able to see another campsite marker that we can grab on our way, where you can switch out Marius and Yahtzee if you want to. And then we will continue on the main road, past the living archives, until coming upon another broken bridge. No lava here though, thankfully. From the broken bridge though, if you look to your north, you'll see a little crater where you will find some star metal as well as the final bounty target that we'll be seeing. Take it or leave it, we will be continuing west all the way to the Ash Forest outpost. And once here, to get to the fragment we are after, stick to the southern cliff face to get up to the southern part of the outpost, and it is just on the roof of this building. And here you will locate the Wolf's Pelt trophy, which allows Second Wind to cast Barbaric Shout, one of the fighter abilities. And the way I showed you did bypass a tripwire, which you will end up on the other side of if you drop down the hole in the roof here. Because this totem fragment, of course, is not the only worthwhile thing here. This final totem fragment is the reason I have been mentioning major main quest beats along the way, because the next fragment is at the Mount Forja summit. And if you go through the quarry, into the mines, and to the summit, some real big story stuff happens, which I'll try not to spoil. So if you're coming from the Ash Forest outpost, we'll be heading back towards the Primordial Depths party camp, or fast traveling there. And if you go south, you will eventually run into the Mount Forja quarry entrance. If you got food that gives you buffs, now's the time to use them because there's going to be a lot of fighting. And as you follow the minecart tracks to the entrance of the mine, check the crane platform to your right for arguably some of the best boots in the game. Once in the mines, the dungeon itself is pretty straightforward, and I feel like I don't have to walk you through the whole thing, just a lot more fighting, lava, loot, and the dungeon path coming to an end at this campsite. Now, once you come outside and head towards the summit camp, a story critical cutscene will play, as well as some other activities. After that plot stuff happens, if you head along the cliff's edge to the southwest, you'll be able to clamber up to this small campsite, where the bedroll will have the Hunter's Arrows of Seeking embedded in it. which grant the effect of killing an enemy, giving you plus 4% damage reduction for 10 seconds. So now that you have the fragments, and once you fight your way back through the mines, because unfortunately you can't fast travel from the summit, you can then head back to camp and set up your now complete Totem of Galawain, get some more lore on the gods, and if you've completed the other totems, get your Pantheon Purist achievement. So now that you have all 4 to choose from, which best serves your min-maxed build? I still really like the WoW totem myself. If you do still need to finish off the other totems, I do have the guides here in the playlist on screen and in the description, along with some tips and tricks and maybe some other stuff on Avowed. And if you found this guide useful, entertaining, or both, please do whatever you see fit to show that. Among the ways you can is by supporting on Patreon like the delectable deities on screen now, including Wasteland Legends, Rose, and Sven. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Kato, and your expedition to the Living Lands awaits.